Well, fellas, we're almost there. Season 18 has finally wrapped up. We got the final cutscene, but Season 19 is just around the corner, which of course means more content, more loot, and more importantly, more story. Guys, I've bought into the narrative a long time ago. I've been diving into lore videos one after another. Between Bife and Mylan, everything that has happened this season, even though it may not have been the most eventful, at the end of the day, we were gathering body parts of Nezarec. Now, there's a few things we're fairly certain of for next season, but I think the biggest question that remains though, how do we get from where we are now to the actual events of Lightfall? Now, I do want to mention there is some spoilers here. If you haven't seen the Season 18 finale cutscene that went live this week, we will be talking about it in this video. Granted though, it's all of like 20 seconds. And I know some of us didn't really like the cutscene. It's not the cutscene that was a problem to me. It was just, well, I wish we could have actually partook in the making of that Nez Cafe, right? And again, what the hell is in that stuff? Now, we have the luxury this time around of knowing what the next expansion has in store for us. So somehow, we have to get from us just vibing and collecting pirate treasure and feeding Nezarec's goop to Osiris to an all-out war between us and the Cloud Striders versus the Witness and his Cabal army led by Callus, as well as fighting those Tormentors. Now, this war is supposed to take place on Neptune, a planet we've never been to, that's apparently had a super futuristic and thriving city on it this entire time that is simultaneously being protected by these Cloud Striders. Now, one season is the only thing that separates us from Lightfall, from Callus, the new disciple of the Witness, from another war with the Cabal, from Neptune and the city Neomuna, which by the way is literally a neon city, from the Darkness subclass Strand, from us learning about what the final shape actually is. Then intertwined between all of that, we have these other story threads that have to fit in somewhere. Questions that need to be answered. Will we get those answers in Season 19? Or is Bungie holding out until the launch of Lightfall to really drop some massive plots on us? And how in the world are we supposed to get there from here to Lightfall? Now, first off, let's lay out some very important questions that we feel like need to be part of Season 19 or answered in Season 19 in some way. Then we're going to walk through each of them. Number one, when and how does the Traveler get infected by darkness? Number two, what happens with Nezarec? Or is that storyline just done? We made one cappuccino with his body and all of a sudden that's it? Number three, why do we decide to go to Neptune? And number four, when and how do we put Rasputin into an exo body? Now, as you can see already, that's a bunch of story threads. Some might say too many for one season, and rightfully so. But we know for a fact that the Traveler will get infected by darkness. We know this from Kaido's voice lines from the Vox Obscura missions, as she's viewing something called psionic divinations, or impressions of things yet to come. She actually explains exactly what she sees. Take a listen to this audio.
This latest transmission from Urix shows the same images over and over, flashing almost too quickly to perceive. They are indistinct, as if multiple pictures were laid atop one another, variations on a theme. These must be psionic divinations, impressions of things yet to come. I never dreamed I would see them for myself. I see a city besieged. The ship stealer revived. The Leviathan reborn. Your Traveler infected by darkness. These are the futures our enemies seek. We must remain united if we are to forge a different path.
Now, if you weren't already aware, each vision she saw corresponds to the seasons we have had post-Witch Queen so far. The Leviathan, Callus's ship, was reborn in Season 17. Aramis, the ship stealer, was revived or thawed this season. Now, we assume the city besieged is referencing Neomuna in Season 20, and we assume this because the line specifically says a city besieged, whereas we refer to our city as the city. Now, we're currently unaware that another city even exists, outside, of course, what's already been shown in the trailers. Also, Kaido knows what our city looks like, so her being unspecific here just doesn't make sense. She would of course recognize the city. Now, this leaves only one season left, one vision yet to come true, which is your Traveler is infected by darkness. So how does the Traveler get infected by darkness next season? Now, if you would have asked our team this a couple weeks ago, we would have 100% told you it was going to be Nezarec. But now that Nezarec's story is up in the air, what else is there? The closest thing to the Traveler that is darkness related is Nezarec, or now Osiris. Osiris has already been sus once. Did we just bring this man back just to be sus all over again? again? That does feel a little too repetitive. But the only thing that makes sense to us is Nezarec. How else would it be done? So here's our new thought process on how this is going to go down next season. It all stems from multiple instances of lore combined with some info from this video by Mylan. In it, Mylan talks about the flavor text of the exotic fusion rifle Delicate Tomb. The line reads, "The danger within is repulsive to us." Mylan goes over how this text is almost an exact match to the nuclear waste warning messages that we have in real life. In 1993, a report from Sandia National Laboratories aimed at communicating a series of messages to any future visitors of a nuclear site gives the following wording on what these messages would provoke to other people. One of these messages reads, "What is here is dangerous and repulsive to us," which is very close to the flavor text on Delicate Tomb. Another message includes the phrase, "the form of danger," which is the exact name of the catalyst quest for Delicate Tomb. There's also a voice line from Idol during week 1 of the season where she says the relic we've obtained has darkness energy radiating from it. Have a listen.
Spectral analysis indicates trace amounts of darkness energies radiating from within the vessel. However, the reliquary is made of a super dense substance, like a lead barrier around uranium. This leads me to deduce that the relic itself is likely quite powerful and potentially harmful if handled directly.
Then we've got multiple instances where characters mention that the relics are emanating pure darkness, as well as this quote from Mithrax when he was younger and with his mother from page 3 of the lore book, Above All Else. An expert which reads, "I felt her press something into one of my hands. A reliquary, one of the few she had forged from the treasures of the moon. I could tell she wanted me to inspect it. I had never seen one of the reliquaries up close before, and though the glass was clear, the oily fluid inside obscured everything embalmed within. Yet still, I felt its presence warming behind my eyes like roots of a great tree burrowing into soil. It whispered to me, not with words, but with promises blooming behind my eyes in visions of glory." This further supports the idea that these relics of Nezarec are truly powerful. We've heard it firsthand from Mithrax himself, as just one of them corrupted him, causing him to turn on his own people in search of them. And this lore piece is from when he only had one of them, let alone the 8 that we have now. So if each relic of Nezarec is emanating this darkness energy, an energy that is only held stable because of the containers that they are in, and they have multiple tie-ins with radioactivity, we assume that all the pieces being together only enhances that darkness field. And this field of radioactive light darkness energy is enough to infect the traveler over time. So the witness's goal was actually to have Aramis hunt down the relics because he knew we would try to stop her and of course collect the relics for ourselves. We would then eventually bring them all together out of our curiosity, thus infecting the traveler for him because we literally live right next to it. So the idea is that Osiris is being used again, but in a different way. Granted, I don't think us collecting the relics of Nezarec was ever really intended to help Osiris, but we do know that this radio-like darkness energy is definitely now a part of him, and him living at the tower in the city is close enough that the traveler could actually infect it. We do have to remember that Nezarec's influence does stretch over a long distance, as Mithrax's mother explains in page 2 of the same lore book that they heard whispers as forceful as a scream from within the dark tunnels of the moon that led them to the pyramid where they eventually find Nezarec and chop up his body. Now we brought those forceful screams, that darkness energy, Nezarec's body, and everything back together and essentially let Osiris consume it. There's got to be consequences from this, and I would say that infecting the traveler is a pretty big one. Now that entire section basically answers the first 2 questions we brought up at the beginning of the video. Essentially, when and how does the traveler get infected by darkness, and what happens next with Nezarec's storyline. Next on the list of questions ties directly into the whole Nezarec Osiris plotline. In the final cutscene for season 18, Osiris actually wakes up and says that the energy from the Nezarec tea that he drank opened his mind and let him remember Savandun's thoughts and fears as if they were his own. He even says that Savandun knew of a secret power hidden away on Neptune. Now that's fine and dandy, and considering we do know we're going to Neptune in Lightfall, this all makes sense. But we don't think that just Osiris saying there's a secret power on Neptune is the reason that we're suddenly gonna all be going there. Like all of a sudden after Osiris was super sussy for like a year and a half, suddenly we're just like, okay, wherever you want us to go, man. Upon him waking up after being in a coma. On top of that, he just drank some super darkness tea. There has to be more reason for this. Something has got to happen next season that pushes us to Neptune, that pushes us to need this supposed secret power. Now remember, in game, nobody knows about Neomuna. Somehow we have got to get that information first, or else we're just heading to an entire planet to search for a secret power, which, funny enough, may actually be the only narrative being driven here. So the question remains, what happens next season that convinces us to go out in search of a secret power hidden on Neptune? The team and I have some ideas, but we're actually going to save that for our Lightfall speculation video coming soon, because in order to explain what we think is going to happen, we have got to talk about Lightfall. And that's a whole other can of worms, so stay tuned for that one. But we do think we're going to uncover the reason why we decided to go to Neptune during this next season. Now, the last question that needs to be answered next season, and what we think season 19 will be focused around, is how do we get Rasputin out of the Ingram he's currently in and put him in an exo body? Now, we've literally known about this plan for ages. Anna Bray has been trying to save Rasputin by putting him into an exo body because ever since the conclusion of season of Arrivals, he's simply been stuck in an Ingram, unable to do anything. And since Rasputin's main goal is to protect humanity, albeit on his own terms, he's one of the most powerful weapons and allies we could ever have. We believe next season will focus on this storyline. We also believe that Anna Bray will be the focal character, and we assume that our weekly story missions will involve us doing something in order to help transfer Rasputin to an exo body. Now, we already kind of have some teases of Rasputin in game right now, as the sweeper bots that are seen around the newly revamped Elixir Quarter have Rasputin logos on them. Now, they could have easily taken the regular sweeper bots from the tower and placed them here, but they didn't. So we're thinking it's definitely a hint at next season. So this is probably what's going to take center stage next season, but at the same time, Osiris is unknowingly infecting the Traveler over time, while we're distracted with helping Anna and Rasputin. But how do we go about getting Rasputin into his new body? Bungie can actually do a variety of things here, which is kind of hard for us to speculate on. Plus, we really haven't heard much in terms of what Anna Bray has tried already, or exactly what she's been up to, other than her failing multiple attempts at converting Rasputin over. We know that she tried using Scion Splicer technology during Season the Risen in an attempt to help with her transferring of Rasputin's consciousness. But besides her seeing the Valkyrie javelin covered in thorns and brambles, we didn't get much info out of it. What's interesting though is that there is a timeline where Rasputin does get successfully transferred into an exo, and he helps Zavala and Elsie in an attempt to stop a corrupted Eris Morn. This actually happens in the Dark timeline. In chapter 2 of the Dark Future lore book, it actually describes the moment Rasputin is reborn into an exo. A few of the lines read, "The pool begins to bubble. Anna jumps to her feet as a sleek metal hand emerges from the fluid. Slowly, the exo rises. Silky liquid drips from the tendrils that conjoin the parts. Eventually, it takes its first steps out of the pool. Red? Anna asks timidly. Its head turns. Glowing eyes of scarlet meet ours, and it speaks Russian. Welcome back, old friend, Anna says. While this is cool and all, what's even more important is the location this takes place in, the place where exos were born, inside the Deep Stone Crypt. And what is one of the only things we know for certain about next season? That the Deep Stone Crypt weapons will become craftable and get their own origin traits. Now, we believe this is Bungie trying to tie the story and plot together with making past weapons viable again, or updating past weapons and their perks. We know this is something that they're trying to do more often. Stated by Chris Proctor and Vivian Bex during their Player vs. Enemies podcast in early November, Bungie will bring certain sets of weapons back when there's a story beat centered around a specific character or whatever. The moment there is a Black Armory story beat or an Ada story beat, you can expect Black Armory weapons to come back. Or if there's a really strong Saint or Rasputin story beat, you can expect those weapons then too. So not only are we 98% sure that next season is Rasputin focus, which means we'll be getting those Season of the Worthy weapons back, we're also going to be able to craft Deep Stone Crypt weapons, which fits in perfectly where Anna and Rasputin's story could possibly end up, just like it did in the Dark Future lore book. In the Deep Stone Crypt, transferring Rasputin into an exo. Now, everything that's in the Dark Future doesn't have to take place. It's an alternate timeline after all, but you can't help but see the similarities here with what we know has to happen next season and what has already been confirmed by Bungie. It just makes too much sense, guys. Also, we are getting a new dungeon in Season 19. What if this dungeon is us exploring a new part of the Deep Stone Crypt? And honestly, as much as I love that raid, I would be completely down with this. Now, we think that we're going to succeed in this transfer of Rasputin's consciousness because there's an important piece of info that needs to come directly from him. We believe Rasputin will be one to tell us about Neomuna. That combined with whatever else happens next season, this will convince us to seek out the mysteries on Neptune and the city of Neomuna. Now, why will Rasputin be the one to tell us about Neomuna? Because he's the only one that we know of who knew of its existence. Let's just flash back to Season the Risen real quick. Upon completing the final mission on the investigation board of the Enclave, you're met with this transcript that was recovered from the time wounds on Mars. It reads, to Ikora, here's the AI Rasputin protocol transcript we picked up from the wounds. According to this, before initiating Yuga Sundown, Rasputin killed all protective measures in place for human colonies and settlements. There's a big list of code names for the moon, Mars, Earth, the Exodus ships, etc. But Rasputin also refers to a place called Nephel's Stronghold. No record of that in any of our databases. Forwarding to Anna Bray for cross-ref. A follow-up message from Anna Bray brings up more questions that it answers. No hit on Nephel's Stronghold in any of Rasputin records. Can't even find the original transcript you're quoting. quoting, "If it's real, someone removed all traces of it. And if they did it so cleanly that I suspect Rasputin himself." We talk about this in our speculation video for season 17 way back in April. We mentioned that this stronghold could be related to the pacifist colony out on the outer rim that Lady Aphrodite told us about during Rise of Iron in Destiny 1, because that too was a colony of people that nobody ever knew existed. A bit more research into the name Nephill, and we find that the same name spelled a bit differently has roots in Greek mythology, as it's a cloud nymph. Back then, we didn't know the significance of this, but now we know that cloud striders are essentially Neomuna's guardian equivalent. Cloud striders, cloud nymph, and Nephill's stronghold, it's all making sense. Coupled with the fact that Rasputin loves to have code names similar to this, as well as similar to mythologies, it's a frequent naming structure he incorporates. Names using Loki, Icolos, Fenrir, Surturf, which all stem from mythology. Now, why are we bringing all of this up? Now, no lie, reflection a little bit here. We did indeed predict Lightfall and us going to this pacifist colony that Lady Aphrodite brought up over 6 years ago. Although we thought it was going to be part of season 17, we were expecting a bit too much out of that season, and we'll admit that. But we asked the question back then, if Rasputin did wipe all traces of Neomuna, why? First off, why was he protecting it and keeping it secret? Why is it important enough to wipe from his own records? Back then, we thought that a part of him, or maybe a backup of Rasputin, was being stored there, or some kind of weapon that if fallen into the wrong hands could endanger humanity, as his entire goal is to keep humanity safe. And now, thanks to Osiris and the Nezarec juice, we know that there is indeed some kind of power on Neptune. And once we get to Rasputin and get him up and running again, maybe there's a way he gets his knowledge of Neomuna back and tells us all about it. Because besides him, nobody but Aphrodite knows or knew of its existence. And I don't think Aphrodite is going to be visiting the tower anytime soon. Also, in our season 17 speculation video, we go over the Greek story that Nephill is mainly known for. Long story short, her kids were being hunted down, and so she sent them off to a place far away where they'd be safe. We didn't think about the literal comparisons to Rasputin that the story might have because, well, Rasputin has no children to protect, or does he? We have a theory that we mentioned back in that video though, right at the end, that this stronghold, Nephill, Neomuna, was created from an Exodus ship carrying people in a cache of SIVA that was able to escape during the Exodus launches. The Grimoire card, Ghost Fragment, Old Russia 4 describes the ship we believe to be the one that eventually makes its way to Neptune to begin creation of Neomuna and a new colony. The Grimoire card says, "I can feel the mites buzzing, pushing against my submind. They try to steal fragments of memory, but I do not let them. They have no will, but they want to be. I exert electronic will, pushing, shaping, forcing stasis on perpetual motion. They're quiet then, but I can still sense them. Where once my cargo holds were full of tools, weapons, and material, now they hold barely contained possibility. New worlds will be built from these tiny mites, weapons and cities and ships created by thought and science. I fear my will is not strong enough to shape these worlds. Only the tyrant Rasputin can do that, but he will not be a part of my journey. Even his reach has limits, and we will be 9 billion miles away. I whisper my concerns to the tyrant in tiny magnetic bursts. He does not listen. The tyrant says, take the SIVA, and so I take the SIVA. The tyrant says, go to the stars, and so I go to the stars. My God, that just gives me chills. Now let's say this is the Exodus ship that did eventually land on Neptune and created the building blocks of Neomuna. What does this have to do with Rasputin having children? Well, let's just jump over to the lore piece of the exotic auto rifle Quicksilver Storm, which actually utilizes what we assume to be Cloud Strider tech. Partly because you have to pre-order Lightfall to get it. It has this weird silver effect on it that almost looks like part of the gun is being constructed every time you switch weapons, which is almost identical to what we see with the Cloud Strider in the Lightfall trailer. It's also got a silver liquid effect on it when you just have the gun out, and when you reload it, you can see the construction of the silver part of the gun. It reforms itself, builds itself. And the lore in the gun talks about a silver substance that's used to essentially create the rounds the gun fires out of nowhere. In this lore, Elsie Bray is talking to a ghost named Toki while she inspects what we assume is this gun, being Quicksilver Storm, or a gun of Cloud Strider origin. We won't read the entire lore piece here, but there is a part where Elsie is observing this weapon and says someone in the outer system is using weaponized nanomachines, something that I've never seen before, and I've seen everything. Someone out there has a weapon, and I've never seen it before, don't understand, and don't know how to defend against. The closest thing we've seen to this is SIVA, and these bucks are so far beyond that. A theory we have is that this silver material the Cloud Striders use, and that they've essentially built into their bodies, as you can see via the art for them, this silver material is an upgraded, highly advanced version of SIVA. And because Rasputin created SIVA, and this is an advanced version of SIVA, he wants to protect this colony. And as for the Cloud Striders, he thinks of them as his creation. And so the same way that the Cloud Nymph Nephill sends her children, her creation, away to be safe, so did Rasputin. Now, admittedly, there are some issues with this theory, mostly time period related to things, as Rasputin would have had to have some serious foresight since the launch of the Exodus ships happened before the collapse. But we've seen some crazy stuff out of Rasputin. So don't put anything past them. Maybe you ran simulations or something. And maybe we're looking a little too deeply here into mythology, but this is just one of the many theories that us and the team have been cooking up here. So that's going to wrap the video up, guys. We have a lot more theories to go over at some point in the future, but that's going to be based on what comes to fruition next season and, of course, in Lightfall. A lot of this we're going to be saving for the Lightfall video. They're going to dive into Savathun's 2 lies, though, as well as her 2 truths game. More on Nezarec stuff and the lore that we have on him, Strand, and, of course, the Traveler. Now, to quickly summarize the things that we think are going to happen next season, we think the Traveler will get infected by the darkness over time, thanks to radiating darkness energy that Nezarec emits from inside of Osiris. We also think that Nezarec's story is far from over, even after the Traveler gets infected. Again, more on this in our Lightfall video. We also think we're going to find out why we decided to go to Neptune, whether that's just through Rasputin or because of another theory that we have. But again, not going to talk about that much. That'll be for the Lightfall video. And we do think that this season will heavily focus on Rasputin and putting him into an exo via the Deepstone Crypt and Clovis Braid technology. Now, before we go, we also think that next season we will finally be, after 19 long months, going up against the Vex again. If next season does indeed place us inside the Deepstone Crypt and the Clovis Braid facilities, that of course is all on Europa, where there's multiple Vex structures of huge significance, the only other race that's currently on Europa is the Fallen, and we're just coming out of a Fallen themed season. We don't see Bungie running that trend again. Maybe the Vex are looking for something that's deep inside the Deepstone Crypt. Maybe the dungeon next season is Vex themed. The last time we fought the Vex was in Season of the Splicer, when we traversed the Vex network with the help of Mithrax. Maybe Bungie saw how much people like the Vex network, its vibes, its visuals, so they decided to make a dungeon with that same style. The Vex are one of Destiny's most powerful enemies, but also one of the most mysterious. So while we don't have the exact theory on what the heck the Vex have to do with next season, we still think, based on where we'll most likely be, they make the most sense to be the main race we'll be fighting. That's it, guys. Let us know what you think of our theories. Again, big shout out to the team for these videos, as well as diving into all this. This is a ton of information. If you are interested in really peering into the minds of the true Lord Daddies of Destiny, feel free to check out Mylan as well as Bife. There's even some other creators out there that do a fantastic job. We'll link those guys down below. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.